Welcome to Everything with Everett. This is a talk show podcast hosted by Everett McConaughey. The purpose of this production is to share thoughts, voices, and information to further a discussion on who we are as individuals, communities, and a global society. Everything with Everett is open to all topics of discussion: faith, science, history, finances, social issues, and, well, everything. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Visit everettpodcast.com for all the details.
Hey everybody, I am back. I hope you're enjoying more content. So, as you may be aware, hopefully, Election Day 2024 is upon us in just over a month on Tuesday, November 5th. So, it got me thinking. I turned 18 in 2006, and obviously you can start voting when you're 18. And I started thinking about, the first election that I participated in was in 2008. I was part of the caucusing process for Barack Obama, and I was happy to cast a vote for Barack Obama. My wonderful late grandmother was a delicate and staunch supporter of Hillary Clinton. We butted heads over that a bit. She was natively from Arkansas, so I see some state loyalty there. But either way, I come from a very strong Democratic lineage. So, I was thinking about it. I was like, it's crazy. I am now 36. Holy crap, time flies. But since 18, I have participated in the 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, and now 24. This will be my fifth presidential decision in my lifetime. And I started thinking about, what's the average lifespan in America? How many votes do we actually get? And it is mind-blowing when you think about we only get a few votes. And it's incredible to realize that a lot of people don't care to vote, don't think about voting. They're they're like, I'm tired of the politics. I'm tired of the back and forth. It is exhausting. There is discussion for how weird our political system is in this country. In other countries, they do it like 3 months before the election. You campaign hardcore, you get the vote, and then the next day they switch, changing of the guard. Boom, done, move on. For some odd reason, our country, we do it for an entire year before the election. Now, with the newer candidates in the last 10 years, it goes for as long as 4 years before the election. Some candidates, start campaigning day one of their presidency. It's like, well, maybe you should actually spend time in office before you file the documentation necessary to run again. But I digress. So I thought it would be interesting to share some data with you on how many votes you actually get to have in your lifetime if you actually choose to fulfill the beauty of your citizenship and actually uphold that duty to vote, to have a voice, to be heard, to speak for those who align with either your ideals of the future or those that you see are being oppressed and don't have a loud enough voice. You can speak on their behalf. In fact, that's the beauty of justice in our country. We value speaking for those who cannot be heard, for those who are not being invited to the microphone, for those who are not being legitimized. It's our obligation. If you're a Christian, it's what God and Jesus said to do. So choosing not to vote is actually incredibly dangerous. It really speaks to the individual choosing not to vote. Like, there's felons that would love to vote. There's people in prison that would love to vote. They don't have that right. So if you have nothing against you and you choose not to vote, what a fool. What an absolute fool. So here's some data. I did my own crunching on it. I'm going to link to an article in this from the Pew Research Center. Very interesting, discusses the voter turnout analysis from 2018 to 2022. It was written in July last year. Multiple pages. I thought about reading it. I was like, you know what? This is pretty in-depth. You might fall asleep, and I don't want you to do that. So I decided to turn to, my trusted resource these days, since I'm a solo act, ChatGPT. I asked, how many people in the U.S. are registered to vote? How much of the eligible population has voted in the 2016 through 2022 elections? And why doesn't every eligible person vote? Here's the response that I got. And it actually, I'll do another prompt in a moment here that actually really aggregates the data that I roughly calculated with a calculator, just based off of, known generalized data. But actually getting to hear these breakdowns is really, really insightful. So as of recent data, there were approximately 168 million registered voters in the U.S. during the 2020 general election, out of a total eligible population of 239 million people. Let's just pause there for a second. Let's see how small that number actually is. Ooh, hold up, screen's here. Okay, so 168 out of 239 times 100. Only 70.29% of the eligible population in the United States decided to give a damn and vote. I sure hope you weren't part of that. I know you're not, because you're my people. I mean, this podcast theme visually is blue. The discussion points are blue. We vote for progress. I believe in science. Like, you're my peeps. You voted. I'm sure of it. But so voter registration and turnout fluctuate slightly from election to election. Here's an overview of voter turnout in major elections from 2016 to 2022. The 2016 presidential election, about 60% of voting eligible population cast ballots. That was around 138 million voters. 2018 midterm election, the turnout surged to 50% of eligible voters, which was unusually high for a midterm. 2020 presidential election, the voter turnout was historic, with 66.8% of eligible population voting, about 158 million voters. The 2022 midterm elections, the turnout was lower than in 2020, but still high for a midterm, with around 47% of eligible voters participating. Why are we waiting until somebody wins office to be like, oh, I guess the discussion points beforehand were right? Like, when he said those nasty things on that bus in those tapes, I guess that really was an indicator of what kind of a person he is. Damn, I guess we better vote in the midterm. Like, hello, people. Let's vote before these idiots get into office. Why doesn't every eligible person vote? Several factors contribute to why many eligible voters do not cast ballots. Disengagement or apathy. This is the dangerous one. Some people feel disillusioned with the political system, believing their vote won't make a difference, or they don't trust political institutions. Barriers to voting. Obstacles like strict voter ID laws, long wait times at polling places, or difficulty in accessing absentee ballots can prevent people from voting. Lack of awareness. Some eligible voters may not know how to register, where to vote, or miss key deadlines. Scheduling conflicts. Election day falls on a Tuesday, a work day, which can make it hard for some to find time to vote, especially if they lack paid time off. Voter suppression. In some areas, certain policies and practices might be seen as restricting access to voting for certain groups. Example, gerrymandering, polling place closures. And felony disenfranchisement. Many states restrict voting rights for those with felony convictions, excluding millions of otherwise eligible people. Each of these factors play a key part in shaping voter turnout rates across the country. So again, if you have the ability to vote, you need to vote. And I am not, wool over my eyes. I understand there's not always a clear winner on which side is the best. And frankly, both sides have said something that I don't agree with. I'm sure the same has happened for you. But you do need to vote your conscience. You need to vote which side of the given options. Yes, it would be great to get a third party. Yes, it would be great to break the status quo pendulum swing of the left or the right. But until then, you have to vote the candidate that is either A, most aligned to your personal goals in your future, B, most aligned to your personal values in this life and future. I think we're at a point now where, do you believe in America? You have to vote for that. Do you believe in the peaceful transfer of power? You have to vote for that. Do you believe that women have the right to make decisions about their own bodies? I'm talking about abortions here. Do you believe that women should be offered emergency medical treatment without the doctors delaying action out of fear that they're going to go to prison for the rest of their lives, lose their livelihoods, completely destroy their lives to save a life? Should women be sentenced to death because there's an unwanted or unviable fetus in their body? These are the things you have to vote on. And I'm sorry, but border security right now is kind of a laughing joke when the person who's championing it is a 34-time convicted felon. He can't own a gun, so don't even come to us about Second Amendment rights. And he can't even vote, so he doesn't give a crap about America. I said it. So let's talk about how long your life typically is and how many votes you actually get to cast. It's such a beautiful gift that you get to give to the world. There's only so many times that you are invited to the microphone of history and get to decide what the future pages will be written like. Granted, everything that you decide won't always come to fruition, but wouldn't you like to know that you were part of deciding on that? I know for a fact that things that are in our country's history, I did not vote for. And I'm happy that things are in our country that are positive, such as the Affordable Care Act, that came to fruition under Barack Obama, where now you cannot be denied pre-existing medical conditions. You cannot be punished for changing employers and getting new healthcare providers so that they can, you have pre-existing diabetes. We're not going to, we locked people into employment situations that were less than ideal, stuck them into marginally paying roles because they didn't want to lose health insurance. Think about that. I voted for Barack Obama. I am part of the voice to people not being marginalized for healthcare. I'm damn proud of that. And you should be too. All right. So I asked, what is the average lifespan in the USA? How many elections can one participate in a typical lifetime? And these numbers match up exactly with what I roughly calculated, but I love the breakdown of the different elections. And I understand the presidential ones get the biggest fanfare, but the midterm elections help guide the path to the next presidential election. You should not be skipping any election. I have not voted on election day at an election polling site since 2015. Once I discovered early voting in person in Ada County or absentee ballots during COVID, that's all I do. I do not want to try to find time to go wait in line on stupid Tuesday and try to go vote. I want the beauty of having the freedom to vote from my house. I want to get my ballot early enough that I can actually consult the internet in the comfort of my own home and find out who the hell is on my ballot, what they believe, and what they stand for. And I feel like my vote is far more educated these days because of early voting and absentee voting. And I encourage you to take advantage of that. Look up, your cutoff dates for registering to vote. Let me do a real quick thing here real quick. When is the last day to register to vote in Idaho? Since most of my listeners, and this podcast was started in Idaho, so, I'm pretty sure Idaho allows you to register day of. Registration deadlines. In person during early voting, October 21st through November 1st. In-person voting at the voting location on election day. Okay, so in Idaho, if you are wanting to vote early, you can vote early and register when you show up in person to vote early from October 21st through November 1st. And then you can register all the way up to, if you miss the November 1st early voting deadline day, you're going to have to wait till the in-person voting on election day, November 5th. You can register the day of. Now, if you're wanting to register online and then still vote either early or vote absentee or vote day of, that online registration in Idaho is October 11th. If you are someone who likes to use the snail mail, voting registering by mail needs to be postmarked by October 11th. In Pennsylvania, for my new listeners and the state that we now live, the deadline is October 21st, which is my husband and I's anniversary. You can always remember that. Our anniversary is voting time. So there you go. Let me get some extra details here for my Pennsylvania peeps. All right, so here's for 2024 U.S. elections in Pennsylvania. In person at local election office, registration is October 21st. Online, October 21st by mail. Needs to be received, not postmarked like Idaho, received by October 21st. So at least get it in the mail. Good rule of thumb for the Postal Service. If you're mailing a card to a family member across the country, wherever it may be, get it in the mail at least 3 days before the date that it needs to be there by. So if the 21st falls on a Friday and you want it to get there by Friday, you should probably mail it by Tuesday. Plenty of time. The Postal Service works in mysterious ways. Some places it works incredibly fast. Other places, who knows how they run. Like what's supposed to come on Saturday here in Pennsylvania shows up on Sunday. Like, I don't know. They have a whole nother world. But in Idaho, it was not that way. So know where you live. Figure it out. It's quite incredible. Continuing with the Pennsylvania deadlines, mail and absentee deadlines, you need to request the ballot. The request needs to be received by October 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You need to return the ballot by mail. It needs to be received by November 5th at 8 p.m. So if you are voting by absentee, don't forget, most places require you to attach your own stamp, and you have to sign things and follow the instructions on the sleeve. It's not that hard, folks. Just read, slow down, put it all together, and your vote will count. But it needs to be in their office by the 5th. You still have to meet the deadline of the election day. So I would say within a week of receiving your absentee ballot, fill it out, vote, get it in the mail, and you're done. You've done your part. That's being an effective U.S. citizen and, participating in our beautiful government. So the average lifespan in the USA varies slightly based on demographic factors. But as of the most recent data from 2021, the overall life expectancy is approximately 76 years. 73 years for men and 79 for women. It referred to them as males and females. I really hate when things refer to people as male and female. Like, our country has a very weird obsession with genitalia. Like, we need to move it's gross. This is slightly lower than previous years, partially due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people died under Trump's administration, but let's not talk about that inconvenient truth. So happy that you all got $2,000. Yeah. Presidential elections. In the U.S., presidential elections occur every 4 years. Assuming someone lives for 76 years, they would have the potential to experience approximately 19 presidential elections during their lifetime. However, the actual number depends on when the person becomes eligible to vote at age 18. So if someone turns 18 and lives to 76, they could participate in around 15 presidential elections. Midterm elections. In addition to presidential elections, there are midterm elections every 2 years, which take place halfway through each presidential term. In a lifetime of 76, an individual could potentially participate in about 29 midterm elections, starting from age 18. Local and state elections. In addition to federal elections, there are also many state and local elections, which often happen more frequently, typically every 2 to 4 years, depending on the specific offices and issues being decided. In summary, an American voter can participate in around 15 presidential elections, 29 midterm elections in an average lifetime, along with numerous state and local elections. And typically the state and local elections happen at the same times as your midterms and presidential elections. You're going to have the one-offs, the lower turnout, like the special levies and the bonds and the school board decisions. Those can be a bit cumbersome. They are still important, but if there's any election that you decide to sit out that is too cumbersome for you to participate in, maybe you have to go to the school district offices. The only elections I've ever sat out are school board ones, which in hindsight, probably should participate in those too, because those are being also hijacked by radical people. And our children, whether or not you have a child in the school systems, we all have to believe in an educational system that helps build the country that we want. So please participate in every election you possibly can. If there happens to be a levy that you forget about, weren't properly notified about, maybe there wasn't enough outreach, don't kick yourself for skipping those. But do not abstain from a governor election, a senator election, a representative election, your president. You need to vote. Like it said, in a typical lifespan, you only get about 15 presidential elections. I've already had 5. I'll have had 5 this November. I'm only going to get 10 more votes on average. I hope more, but life looks so much more finite when you think about where you are in life, how many votes you've had, how many votes remain, and do you really want to sit out and let other people speak for you and let other people decide what your future is going to look like? Do you have an opinion? You need to say it. You need to speak it. Because you only get invited to the microphone of history 15 times in the average lifespan. So, to all my listeners from Easton, Pennsylvania, getting some Lawrenceville, Georgia, and very interesting new demographics coming around. South Carolina, Philadelphia, Chicago. A lot of people still in Idaho, Boise, Meridian, Nampa. Thank you all for being such loyal listeners. Whoever listens in France. I don't know. This is one of the one of those like download services somewhere. Like I don't know what, because every single episode has a download from someplace in France. So if you're a real person, hat off to you. Thank you for always being there. But otherwise, you're probably some like computer server somewhere. Anyway, please vote. Register to vote. I will have links in this podcast again to the Pew Research Center article about voter turnout. Really interesting to look at the demographics, how race and age play into this, and then how even those metrics skew versus if you're conservative, if you're progressive. It's really fascinating data. And I know from living in an all red state, from living in a place where it feels really hopeless, like my blue vote never went to actually casting a president. I understand it. Our country feels so defeated with the Electoral College. You can have tons of blue votes in Idaho, but only 2 of the Electoral College votes coming from Idaho towards the president are always going to be red. You're outnumbered. I understand the defeated feeling of that. But if we don't participate, it will always stay that way. If everybody starts speaking up, Idaho used to be a blue state. Idaho used to be very progressive. Idaho gave the right to women to vote because the population was so sparse. And let's be honest, women were the only ones that really survived the pioneer stuff. Men got hurt with boulders falling on them as they mined in the mines, or died from freak man accidents, like women were needed to vote because otherwise they didn't have enough people to really look like a state. So, for as conservative and downright racist as a lot of places in Idaho are, Idaho has a very historic lineage of not being that way. And my grandfather was born in Idaho. I was born in Idaho. We were both Democrats. We both voted blue because we believed in a better future. We believed in progress and giving people opportunities to make decisions for their lives, not sit here and come up with draconian ideas that, inhibit their freedoms. It was very much the live and let live mindset. Call that a hippie. I don't know, but that's what Idaho's native values are. And you got all these crazy people coming in from, conservative parts of California that don't like how, blue Sacramento is, or they don't like how, progressive. And I understand both the directions. We can't afford to pay for everything. The money has to come from somewhere. But guess what, folks? We need to start taxing everybody. I think every organization, every business, every church, and churches are businesses, need to be taxed, especially if they're participating in political discourse and swaying their attendees, congregation to vote in particular ways. I think that people like Donald Trump, billionaires, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all these companies need to pay their fair share. But for so long, they've been getting the tax cuts. And guess what? The budgets, the spending of our government doesn't change. So guess who, when the rich people get told, hey, you don't have to pay 2% of the taxes you paid previously, that 2% gets divvied up to the people down below. So when a conservative person talks about tax cuts, they mean tax cuts for the rich. It's not for you, but they want you to think it's for you. They really don't care about you. And someone who's a billionaire who lives in a penthouse at the top of a New York skyscraper, do you really think he cares about what is happening in your little rural community? Do you really think he cares about the yield and profits of your potato field? No, he doesn't. He really doesn't. But he wants you to think he does because, like he said, you have to get elected. So they'll say whatever the hell they have to dupe your vote. So please participate. Again, you only get so many votes within your lifespan, 15 on a good average life. You might get more, you might get less, depending on what happens in that trajectory. But there's too much on the line for you to sit any of them out. Please vote. Vote your conscience. Again, I'm sounding like a broken record, but it's very important. If you're eligible to vote, there are so many people that would love to have the opportunity to vote and have your voice even. So use it. Alrighty, well, election day is coming up. Please get registered to vote. I encourage you to take advantage of the absentee ballot voting. You don't have to be around other people. No more getting sick. You don't have to see, what the rest of your community looks like. It's kind of a blessing, you can look up the political candidates, actually make informed decisions. If you're blue, vote for the Republican incumbent that has the best qualifications. If the incumbent is a conservative, is the opposite party as you, if you have no understanding that they're not doing a good job, why change it? Keep them in office. We don't need to change for the sake of change, but we need to have a well-run government, a government full of elected people that believe in public service. This is not an empire. This is not a kingdom. We believe in the peaceful transfer of power. January 6th was a coup against the government. January 6th really is a problem.
Thank you for listening to Everything with Everett. Connect with Everett and other listeners on Facebook and Twitter at Everett Podcast. Everett would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts by emailing mystory@everettpodcast.com. You can also leave a voicemail or send a text message to 208-391-2808. Choose to listen, speak with kindness, and have a great day.
That's Molly Miklos of Voiceovers by Molly, LLC. Voiceovers by Molly, LLC is ready to collaborate with you to create the best voice for your project. Molly's voice is professional and clear, warm and friendly, with a versatile twist, capable of snarky and sassy. Molly has a wide range of voice styles to provide a plethora of moods for your TV, radio, and character projects. Contact Molly today. She wants to collaborate with you. All the information is on her website, voiceoversbymolly.com.